Hello, everyone. Sarah Muirhead with Feedstuffs 365. I'm here in downtown Chicago, and we are in a freight container where we are growing produce in a very small footprint. And with me today is a sister duo, Jacqueline Scala and Mary Kathryn Scala. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for being out here with us, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. So they have a freight container. Is it like a 40-foot freight container? And you have it on a very small footprint here in downtown Chicago. You're running an operation called Freight to Plate. Tell me a little bit about that, Jacqueline.
Sure. You're standing in a freight farm, which is a standard shipping container. It's 40 feet by 8 feet, 9.5 feet tall, and you only need 500 square feet to put one of these down and activate a full-grown farm. So we are growing equivalent to 2.5 acres worth of produce in here.
And you are a commercial real estate person. You have a background in commercial real estate. How difficult is it to put a freight container here in downtown Chicago?
Well, that's a loaded question, but in terms of size, it's not too difficult because, again, you only need 500 square feet to integrate one of these into a community or a building, and you need access to water and electricity. But when I said that's a loaded question, of course, there might be zoning and permits required to get one up and running, but really after that, it's just a simple electrical hookup and getting water to feed all your plants.
So what is the whole purpose? What is the whole concept behind Freight to Plate?
You know, we came together, Jacqueline and I, at the beginning of the pandemic to, help a community in need that wanted to extend the life of their community garden. And that's where the idea started. How do we take a garden that feeds the community for 3 months and turn it into something that is year-round? We both serendipitously came upon freight farms separately, but once we came together on the idea, we were like, okay, here's one community that can use this. There's a bigger idea here. Why don't we come up with a plan that we could integrate these into all communities across, Chicago, across Illinois, across the United States? So the idea is integrate these farms, help activate them, get the model of food distribution down, because what you're seeing behind us is, in fact, 2.5 acres of produce. It's a lot of produce, hundreds of pounds a week, 4 to 6 tons a year of food. So Freight to Plate really wants to be that service provider to help activate your farm, get the food out to the people that need it the most.
And this is a year-round operation, right? You don't have to shut down in the cold winter months here in Chicago.
Exactly. Essentially, Jacqueline and I get to play Mother Nature in here. So we control when it's, the perfect springtime. So we have light in here 18 hours a day for the vertical gardens. And then for our nursery station, we have light for it 16 hours a day. And we're giving the plants exactly what they need when they need it through nutrient-dense water and, of course, our light source.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how the process works. So let's start at the nursery. What exactly happens in the nursery?
Sure. We're standing here in front of the nursery. There's a nice workstation where we can do all of these activities, but we start at the seed level. So what you're seeing here is different cells. We're growing over 5,000 sites here at one time. We seed the plants, and then they live here for 3 weeks. After about 3 weeks, we take each of the cells out and move it to the vertical gardens where the plants will live for another 2.5 to 3 weeks, depending on what crop it is. Full heads of lettuce, you're going to maybe give it 3 weeks, you get a full head. Then there's trimming plants like arugula, kale, and you can trim those back, and they keep giving back. So they keep regenerating every week, and you're going to get about 3 to 4 weeks out of that plant. So it's pretty amazing.
Talk to us about the water and light and, heat requirements.
Sure. The water requirement is actually really minimal. In this footprint, we use 99% less water than you would traditionally use in soil farming. So in here right now, there's less than 200 gallons of water that is feeding all of these plants in here. Every 6 to 8 weeks, we do a water turnover just to give it fresh water and get those nutrients back level to where we want it. when you get a farm, you're able to hard plumb it, we call it, but really it's just a standard garden hose attachment that you can use. What we do here at Freight to Plate is we have a fire hydrant out in front that we have a fire hydrant permit for that was given to us by the city of Chicago, so we're not doing anything illegal. But we use a certified RPZ unit to get into our hydrant, and every 6 to 8 weeks, like I said, we hook up and literally take a 100-foot hose and connect to the fire hydrant and bring it into the farm and just dump right into our water reservoirs. And as for the heat, again, that's going to be these LED light panels behind us. So every grow panel has a dedicated light source in front of it, and that 18 hours that the LED lights are on, that's really creating the heat that the plants need, or that light source that they need. But essentially, the environment is being controlled by a very powerful HVAC system, which is in the back of the farm.
And you can control all of this from your phone or your desktop, is that right?
Exactly.
Let's see that for a sec here.
When I'm really bored at home on the couch, I can just open my phone and go to my handy dandy Freight Farm app, and it has all the controls that you would need: your light controls, your environment controls, and also your water controls. And when things are looking awry, it will notify me, and I'm able to get in there, troubleshoot, mostly from the comfort of my couch. But there are times when we do need to drive here and check in. But
so how does that work?
should we show you?
Let's see. Let's take a look.
So, as Mary was saying, each of the plant panels has dedicated light sources, and when you see them kick on, it's super energy efficient LED lights, and it's just the red and blue spectrum of light. And that's by design. So most plants out in nature, they're working really hard to filter out all the other spectrums of light and then absorbing the red and blue. And that's what bolsters that nice green plant and the stems and the root systems. And so in here, we're giving it exactly what it needs. So that's why we're able to grow just so much quicker and more efficiently than outdoors.
And there's lights on each side of these panels, and then they light up the greens and help them to grow.
Yes.
Very cool.
And then the same thing is happening. So here you can see the red and blue light directly affecting the plants growing here. The nursery also has dedicated light sources. Again, the red and blue light helping grow that plant from seed to a full harvest.
And I know one of your initiatives here is the food deserts, to help solve food deserts around the country. So how exactly, I mean, are you supplying local chefs? Are you supplying consumers? What is your model?
Well, again, a loaded question. Yeah. So from the footprint we're in right now, we call this, it's our homestead farm, and we call it the showroom. We really activated this farm to prove out a couple of different models to make these farms successful. So yes, we sell this produce behind us to anywhere from a Michelin-starred chef to a local chef that just wants hyper-local and control over their produce source. We also donate a lot of the food as well to local nonprofits. We have also proven out a very successful direct-to-consumer approach because, again, everybody wants clean, nutrient-dense, reliable produce. It makes you feel better. It makes you sleep longer, better. Everything about it is going to enhance your life. So that direct-to-consumer has been really easy for us. And then we also implement a different strategy called a branded partnership, where we partner with other local brands that have the same ethos as Freight to Plate, where health and wellness is at the forefront. So we collaborate on, harvest for their audience, and they are able to, tell us what to grow. We grow it and package it for them, and then they then sell it to their audience, which has been a really fun practice for Jacqueline and I to get into. But the bigger idea of proving out these models at our homestead is so that when we work with nonprofits, when we work with educational institutes, when we work with real estate developers that want to bring these farms in to their communities, we have these proven revenue models that we can help implement into those farms, so then those farms are just as successful as our homestead farm.
And that was the next question I was going to get into in terms of revenue, return on investment. What does that look like?
It's really healthy. I mean, the return on investment you usually see within 3 years. Again, you're growing the best crops available really wherever you are, because they're 100% chemical free, they're nutrient dense, they're grown from top of the farm to bottom of the farm incredibly uniformly. So you're really bringing into whatever community you're in a premium product.
And on a monthly basis, to operate one of these farms, it's 2 people at about 20 hours a week. So the rate of return on just your time and labor, and then all the minimal supplies that you need, it turns around very quickly for you.
You talk about a premium product, but that's something that also can be an affordable product for, folks who might not be able to afford something that's considered in a premium range.
Absolutely. That's kind of one of our bigger goals, too, is making hydroponic food more approachable and integrating right into any community. So when we work with, again, the nonprofits, they're bringing in the whole farm and making sure that there's a big chunk of the food left over to distribute to the community at need, and that's directly there and impacting those people.
And when you have control over your food distribution, there's very little packaging that needs to go into the actual, taking the plants off the wall and getting them to plates. So that's where, yes, it's a premium product, but you get to save on all the other costs that usually go into taking plants from point A to plate, so that's where a premium product like this can be affordable and approachable to any community type.
With more traditional products, your freight is usually probably your transportation, right? And when you guys are looking at this, it's freight being a freight container. Yeah. Very interesting.
Freight to plate. Yeah. We go directly from this freight to your plate.
Do you find any kind of resistance at all in terms of consumers going, I don't want food that's grown hydroponically?
Yes. And mostly it's, chefs will come, and before they even come in, they'll give us a little, note. I don't like hydroponic food because it's not grown in the soil and it doesn't taste as good and it doesn't last as long. And we just kind of smile and said, well, let's go in and let's see how you feel when you leave. And almost every chef that has come in here with an adversity towards it has left with an order. So we've converted a lot of people. And that's another reason we want to take this approach of integrating these farms directly into communities. Hydroponic growing, controlled environment growing is our future. With soil depletion, with environmental contaminants, we have to, really embrace growing indoors. So there are very large warehouse settings that are doing hydroponics, which we see as we're a complement to them, because as we integrate into communities and at the community level, people can see and touch and grow an affinity towards this type of food and how it's grown. The larger, Frankenstein, they typically call it, in the warehouse setting, it makes it more real. It gives it more of a humble approach to that. So,
do you think it opens people's minds to, hey, I can eat these greens, and sometimes they haven't even thought about putting that kind of stuff into their diet?
Absolutely, because you can grow such a large variety and grow things out of season, because again, we're controlling the inputs. So for any community you go in, you could also take a survey. You can see what people are more, what they find more approachable, what they would prefer to see. And then just like Mary and I did, we were like, let's just grow whatever we think looks good or what sounds good, things we've never tried before. But when you grow in this setting, it's such a short time, 6 weeks, so you can really experiment. If something doesn't go well, let's just try something else. We can start over, and it's a quick turnaround.
And I will say, 2 of our main crops in here are bok choy and rainbow Swiss chard. 2 things that when I go to the grocery store and I'm looking around are things that I just would never put in my grocery cart. For a couple of different reasons, but we decided to grow them in here, and now they are 2 of our staple crops, and bok choy is now my favorite green. So, it's just grown so perfectly in here. The color, the texture, the flavor of it is just wildly different than what you would see at the grocery store. So when you ask, can you get people, trying different things, I think absolutely, because we're proofs of that. Yeah. We're trying all sorts of different things now.
Well, and you mentioned chefs sometimes have a little resistance in terms of because they don't think it tastes the same. Do they actually come in and taste it and then they leave being like, well, this isn't a problem, this isn't an issue? What do you find?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you see here, we'll set up a tasting board and give them a little sample of everything that's growing. And when they try the arugula and their eyes light up, they can't fake what they're tasting. They're like, this is amazing. It's bright, it's peppery. I've never had anything like it. We've even had chefs from like the Michelin starred restaurants that come in and they're like, this sorrel tastes like I'm walking through the fields of France. Like it's actually, Mary's mentioned this before, the chefs and the verbiage they come up with to describe what they're tasting in here, we're always like, that's a new one. Like, they just describe it so differently every time, and it's just amazing that the complexity of the flavor that we're getting out of something that we're growing in here in just this different way.
Talk to us.
It's like a new take on a wine tasting.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. a greens tasting.
Yeah, we're gonna have to like coin a green sommelier
Yeah,
or something
right.
like that.
Well, and I think I recall last fall you had a big like community dinner or something here. Was that?
We've had a couple events here. We love to throw events outside of the farm. We really see this farm as a way to do community engagement and just, again, making people have an affinity for this type of growing. But I think the one in the fall was more of, we invited just different people from our networks to come experience the farm, come in, and we were doing little tours. We've also done events where we have yoga classes outside. It just, anything that has to do with health and wellness, we love to just make a bigger deal about. And I'm sure Mary's got some ideas too for other events we've had.
Yeah, I think the one in the fall was our big harvest party.
Yes.
The farm got here in April of last year, so we've been growing in here less than a year, which is kind of crazy. We were growing from the time the farm got here. We were doing a lot of trial growing and like working through, Jacqueline and I don't have agriculture backgrounds. I'll just spill the beans now. So even seeing the seed size and being like, I just don't think this is going to work. We had all the different, new things. So we wanted to really master the farm before we had our first actual harvest party. And so again, for two people that don't have agriculture backgrounds, it really took us about 2 to 3 months to really feel comfortable in here, which in the grand scheme of things is a very short time. So that was definitely our harvest party where we had a full freight full of food, and it was really exciting because we did have a party before that, and we didn't let people in. We just had the viewing glass in front so people could see inside. It was just too new to us at that point. Mm-hmm. But the party where we actually got to have people come in here, and from, a 6-year-old, into like an adult male was like coming in here and eyes big and just so excited. The excitement level across the board was so fun to see. And just kind of like makes us want to keep going and get more farms into more communities.
It is pretty neat to open that door and walk in and like, wow, this is what's in here. So any words of wisdom for someone who might be looking to get into this freight to plate kind of production?
We get asked that quite a bit. Really, Mary and I, again, don't have an agriculture background, but if you really believe in bringing a fresh source of food to your community, give it a try. Not give it a try, go for it. Because you really, again, there's the technology behind it that will help you, and there's a whole network of farmers across the world that are doing the same type of growing. So there's definitely people to lean on. And really, with the supply chain issues that we're seeing and the produce prices going up because of it, this is a way to get rid of that there's no way that prices will go up because you're doing exactly what you need in the small footprint, and there's no supply chain to fight against.
I was just going to echo that and say go for it, because there's endless needs for hyper-local, reliable, clean produce. So, the possibilities are endless for what you can do with your freight farm.
I want to thank you both for being with us today. Freight to Plate, Jacqueline and Mary Kathryn here in the Windy City, growing produce on a very small footprint in a freight container. For Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.